All right, so today we're diving into a figure I'm sure most of you have heard of, but maybe haven't really had the chance to explore in depth. Augustine of Hippo,
Definitely a name that echoes through history.
for sure. And trust me when I say this isn't your typical boring history lesson. We're talking about a guy who lived a pretty wild life before becoming one of the most influential thinkers of his time.
Yeah, his story is anything but ordinary.
To really understand Augustine, we'll be digging in some excerpts from name source, i.e. pasted text. But for starters, imagine the Roman Empire in the 4th century, a time of massive change, kind of like today, actually.
Right, like everyone is trying to figure out where they fit in.
Totally. And Augustine was no different. He was searching for meaning, bouncing between different philosophies, trying to make sense of it all.
Oh, yeah, and one of those stops on his philosophical journey was Manichaeism.
Ah, Manichaeism. Didn't they have that whole good versus evil, light versus darkness thing?
They definitely did. It was a very black and white way of seeing the world, and for a young Augustine looking for clear-cut answers, it probably seemed pretty appealing at the time.
You can see the appeal.
Yeah.
But then he makes this dramatic shift to Christianity.
Which is huge EE,
Yeah.
especially in the Roman Empire where Christianity was still relatively new. I mean, it was a big deal to convert.
Talk about a plot twist.
Uh-huh.
And the best part, we get to hear about this whole inner struggle, this transformation, straight from the source.
Oh, you're talking about the Confessions, right?
Exactly. His autobiography, The Confessions, it's basically one of the earliest, deeply personal memoirs we have from, well, anyone.
It's really remarkable. I mean, to get this window into Augustine's thoughts, his desires, his flaws, his journey to faith, it's pretty amazing.
Okay, so we've got this restless young guy searching for answers, exploring intense philosophies, then bam, dramatic conversion. It's a story that's got it all. But what's really fascinating are the ideas he grappled with, the stuff he was wrestling with, because honestly, it still resonates even today.
Yeah, his ideas have had this incredible staying power. It's pretty wild when you think about it.
So Augustine had some big ideas, ideas that people are still debating today, like original sin. And I got to say, when I hear that, I kind of picture, apples and snakes.
Yeah, that's the Sunday school version, right?
Right. But with Augustine, it feels like there's got to be more to it than that.
Oh, absolutely. For Augustine, original sin wasn't just about, like, breaking a rule. It was about human nature itself. He believed that we inherit this kind of spiritual brokenness, this tendency towards selfishness, towards making choices that lead us away from what's truly good.
Okay, so less about blaming Adam and Eve and more about recognizing that we're kind of hardwired to mess up sometimes.
Exactly. Augustine believed that this flaw in our nature, it's something we all inherit. And it kind of explains a lot about the human experience, Like why we struggle to do the right thing, why we fall short of our own ideals, even when we have the best intentions.
It's like that they say to err is human. But if we're all predisposed to this, to sin, to selfishness, does that mean we're just doomed from the start? Where does free will fit into all of this?
Well, that's where another one of Augustine's big ideas comes in. Divine grace. See, Augustine didn't believe we're left to just figure it out on our own, with our flawed selves. He believed in this incredible, undeserved mercy from God, grace. That's what allows us to overcome those flaws, to choose a different path, to at least strive for something better.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about recognizing we need help, that we need something beyond ourselves to kind of bridge that gap.
Precisely. And the implications of this are huge. It impacts how we view morality, responsibility, even justice. Because if we all have this capacity for both good and bad within us, it changes how we interact with each other, how we build our societies, how we approach forgiveness. Everything.
It really makes you think about how we put people on pedestals these days, especially with social media. Maybe Augustine would say we're all works in progress, always striving, sometimes stumbling, but capable of amazing things with like a little help from grace.
That's a really interesting connection. And speaking of social media and all the pressures that come with it, it's fascinating to consider Augustine's idea of the city of God versus the city of man. It's almost like he predicted this kind of dual citizenship we experience now, split between the real world and the virtual one.
Okay, break that down for me. What exactly are these two cities that Augustine talks about?
So picture two cities, right? And they're like forever at odds. The city of God, that represents the eternal, the unchanging, the realm of spiritual truth. But then there's the city of man. That one is all about worldly desires, power struggles, the pursuit of things that ultimately don't last. Think of it as a metaphor for these two ways of living that are constantly vying for our attention.
So are we talking literal cities here, like New York versus LA, or
Mhm.
something more symbolic?
Definitely symbolic. It's more like the city of man is all about chasing likes, building a following, striving for that temporary validation of the online world. It's so easy to get caught up in that, to feel like those things define us.
Which is wild because, I mean, Augustine couldn't have imagined Instagram or anything,
Yeah.
but it's like he perfectly described the trap we can fall into with social media, right?
Yeah.
Always looking for that next hit of approval, that next viral moment.
Exactly. But then you have the city of God. It's this call to something deeper, more enduring. It's about connecting with something bigger than ourselves, something that goes beyond the trends and anxieties of the everyday world. A city built on values, on truth, on recognizing that real fulfillment doesn't come from like achievements or likes.
So how do we navigate these two cities then? Especially when the city of man seems so loud, so enticing. I mean, it's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
With its notifications and updates and everything else. It's a real balancing act, isn't it?
It is.
Like, how do we balance this desire to, build our own little empires in the city of man with that deeper need for something more, something lasting? The kind of thing Augustine found in the city of God.
Well, and it's funny because it's a tension that's probably always been there for us, for humanity.
Right.
But the digital age,
Yeah.
the internet, social media,
Yeah.
it's definitely amplified it, hasn't it? Like, think about it. One of the things Augustine argued, it was that our hearts are restless, right?
Yeah.
Until they find rest in God. But what happens when we're constantly bombarded with images and messages and opportunities to find, to chase that fulfillment in all the wrong places?
In the city of man.
Exactly, in the city of man, in the form of likes and followers and going viral and all of this temporary stuff.
It's like we're stuck in this loop,
Yeah.
It's constantly striving and reaching, but never quite finding that satisfaction.
Right. And that's what's so amazing about Augustine's ideas. Because they're still so relevant today, he's challenging us to think critically about what we're really going after. Like, are
Yeah.
we building our lives on things that don't last, on external validation? Or are we pursuing something deeper, something more worthwhile?
It's almost as if he's urging us to, just be more mindful,
Yeah,
take a step back from all the noise of the city of man, hit pause on the endless scrolling,
exactly.
and ask ourselves, what am I really searching for here?
Yes. What do you truly desire?
Because at the end of the day, chasing likes and followers,
Yeah.
it's not going to fulfill those deeper longings, is it?
It's a temporary fix. And I think Augustine understood that even back then. It's about recognizing the allure of the city of man. Sure, it's attractive, but we have a choice, don't we? We can choose to build our lives on a foundation of something more meaningful, something more lasting, something grounded in things that really matter, like compassion and truth and finding real purpose beyond the screen.
It's like Augustine's handing us this map to help us navigate this crazy world, this push and pull between the physical world and the digital world, between what's fleeting and what's eternal.
That's a great way to put it. And, that map, it's in his writings. Especially in the Confessions, it's raw, it's honest. He doesn't hold back. And it's his own journey of self-discovery, his own struggles, and his own search for something real.
It's a reminder that this search for meaning, for purpose, for something more in life, it's something we all share as human beings, no matter what time period we live in.
They're all searching for that city of God.
Exactly. So if you're listening and you're ready to dive into these ideas yourself, to hear it straight from Augustine, I can't recommend checking out his Confessions enough. It's a timeless story, a timeless book about the human experience.
It's worth the read.
It really is. All right, so that's Augustine of Hippo. From restless soul to one of the most important thinkers of all time.
A life well examined, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And we'll be back next time with another deep dive into the ideas that have shaped our world.